It's December 23rd, 2024. Welcome and Merry Christmas. We're talking with Mr. John J. Jeckovich today about his books, Their Mother's Sons. This is Mr. Jeckovich, 99th Christmas.
99th Christmas, yeah.
99th Christmas. Mr. Jeckovich is knocking on the door of 100. 99 Christmases. Do you remember any that stand out more than others?
Oh, yeah.
Give us a couple top three Christmases.
Oh, when the kids were small, we had a good time at home with my mother and father, yeah.
What kind of tree did you have?
What?
What kind of Christmas tree did you have?
Christmas trees?
Yeah.
We bought the Christmas trees outside. They were selling Christmas trees all over.
I see.
We got the biggest tree, and then we had to get a stand big enough to hold the tree.
Oh, okay, because otherwise it would flop.
Yeah.
99 Christmases. Wow. I have to think about that. Mr. Jeckovich has 99 Christmases. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, we were young kids then. My mother and father were alive, yeah.
Did you remember any Christmas celebrations of any type when you're in World War II?
During World War II?
Yeah.
No, I was overseas most of the time.
But do you remember when you're in Germany of any type of...
Yeah. Christmas there?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Army tried to put we had a good dinner and everything for that, but it wasn't like home, no.
Not that good, yeah. Well, we're on chapter 22 of your book, and this one is titled Wedding Jitters and a New Life. I think we only have about 6 more pages to put this one in the books, so we'll try to get it done today. But before I start reading, I need the passcode. And
42965.
And could you say your dog tag number again?
42965.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. That's wonderful. I have a couple text messages. Do you feel like answering them?
Oh, yeah.
What exactly is K-rations?
K-rations? K-rations is a box that they gave you when you went on paroles or whatever. It was subsidized food in a box.
Like what kind of food?
Well, they gave you the most nutritious food they could find.
Right.
Something that wouldn't spoil over a week.
Do you remember any good meals during World War II?
Any good meals?
Yeah.
Oh, Army cooks were good.
Like what was your favorite?
Breakfast was a favorite. Army cooks could cook anywhere.
How about when you're leaving the States on a troop ship going to Wales? How was the food then?
There was hell on that ship. We were stacked 3 4 high. There was no stuff to the ceiling.
And that ship was a former luxury liner,
yeah,
converted over to a troop ship. On that troop ship, in your travels, which was a long travel to get to the Wales, did you...
3 months.
Were you underwater? Was your berth underwater?
Yeah. But I stepped out of the deck all the time.
So you stepped out of death?
Yeah.
How was the food on that ship?
Well, the limey ship was crappy.
So a limey were the cooks.
Greasy, yeah.
And they had greasy food. As we're speaking about food, just tell us briefly, you didn't have the proper winter equipment when you were fighting the Battle of Bulge.
Yeah.
You didn't have a proper winter equipment.
No. Well, you seen pictures of it yesterday.
Yes, I did.
They had those buckle boots.
Yes.
That I wore in high school.
And many times they just had a cotton jacket, which doesn't help.
Yeah.
20 below. And then sometimes they gave them a wool coat. But as soon as that gets wet, which it instantly does, that coat feels like cement.
Yeah.
And another interesting fact, because it's so cold, the coldest winter in 100 years, the young teenage soldiers would always be shivering. But when you don't eat for 2 or 3 days, your body does not even have the ability to shiver any longer. You shiver to fight off the cold, but once you don't eat, your body does not have that ability to shiver, which would fight off the cold. As a result, there was many people that lost their hands and fingers and foot to frostbite.
Yeah, frostbite, yeah.
You still suffer from frostbite
I
today?
fell in this foot here, frostbite, yeah.
Yeah, so the weather gets down, your foot is bad.
Pardon?
When the weather gets cold, your
Yeah,
frostbite.
triggers off, yeah.
Yeah. An interesting fact, though, that you didn't lose your foot. Well, many soldiers lost their foot and their legs and their hands and their ears and their nose to frostbite. They just weren't properly equipped.
Well, they didn't take the wet shoes off, the wet socks off, they left them on.
Yeah. They have
Yeah,
supposed to
take them off
change them
inside
every
the
day.
fire, warm them up and dry them up.
Supposed to change them every day. Another interesting note, the Battle of the Bulge was the bloodiest battle of World War II of the Ardennes. And if you would see the beautiful landscape of tree and mountainous, and during the war, it was all stained red in blood, right?
Yeah.
The snow was stained. And they caught the American soldiers off guard. This was Hitler's last-ditch effort to kill a lot of Americans. Scorched earth, burn everything in sight, don't leave nothing for the Americans. And so they were caught off guard. The Nazis assembled the best of their best fighters, the SS, over 600,000 of them, and they had 4,000 tanks. What were their tanks called?
Tanks?
What were the Germans' tanks called? The name of the German tanks.
Tanks?
Yeah, tanks.
You know, German tank?
Yeah, what were they called?
In German?
Yeah. No, what would you call a German tank?
Panzers.
A Panther?
Panzers.
It was, well, it was part of the Panzer Division, yeah.
Okay. And they accumulated 6,000 tanks, and they caught the Americans off guard. There was only 100,000 Army vets there. Most of them were just worn. They're in that area to get rest and relaxation because they didn't think no one would be crazy enough to get to those forests. It's almost impossible to get to those forests. So it was a massacre.
Get to a what?
Get to the forest, the tanks to get to the forest because of all the trees.
Yeah.
It was a massacre. And so what happened was it was very cloudy skies for 2 or 3 days. So the American soldiers couldn't get any air fire on them. So they had to hold off, and they didn't want to let the Nazis take Bastogne. If they would have took Bastogne, the party would have been over with. So these guys stayed there to the bitter end, and then they loaded up guys like Mr. Jeckovich and hundreds of thousands more in these big trucks like cattle cars, and you're all standing up there, right? Standing up with them, freezing ass cold, standing up for 100 or 200 mile ride to Bastogne. And a lot of these young kids, they didn't even know how to pronounce Bastogne, or they didn't even know what the hell country Bastogne was. They're told 4 o'clock in the morning by the commander, General Patton, everyone load up, everyone's going, and he all went. And then when he got there, after this 100 or 200 mile ride in a freezing cold, standing up, you're supposed to jump out and start fighting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or I put in these broken down barracks.
Yeah.
No heat in the barracks.
What a horrible situation. But anyways, they kicked the Nazis' ass. That was the end of it. Hitler committed suicide, and then the battle in the Pacific moved on.
Yeah.
And raged on. In fact, there were so many fanatic Japanese fighters, even as late as 1974, some of the fanatical Japanese infantrymen were still hiding in tunnels and still thought the war was still raging on.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So that's where we're in, and so that's what the question was in K rations. Let me see if I can see anything else on this text. A lot of them came in late last night. I didn't write them down. What type of weapon were you using in the Battle of Bulge?
I was using,
Yeah.
I was heavy weapons, I used a machine gun, a heavy weapon machine gun,
And
30 caliber.
how many caliber was that?
30 caliber.
And how many rounds would that shoot?
Belt was 150 rounds, armor piercing.
So you and all the guys would shoot off a couple thousand rounds and move.
No, they move and they got the guys bringing up ammo all the time. We ran out of ammo all the time.
Did you ever run out of ammo?
Oh yeah, because they got 5 guys running back and forth picking up boxes of ammo, bringing it back.
Yeah. And then also, about the second day in, when the skies cleared up, parachutes were dropped with all types of ammo, correct?
Yeah, and then she dropped a lot of paratroopers too to help us out.
Yeah, paratroopers were a big, it was a great big help. These guys were ready to go, and most of them were refreshed and ready to fight. So that went on from December 16th to the end of January, and that was pretty much the nail.
And the winter months, yeah.
Yeah, the nail that closed the coffin on Hitler. That was the end of him. And Berlin was a total disaster. There was nothing left.
Yeah.
Even though they were bombed by the UK and Americans for years, Hitler even made it worse. He bombed the rest of Berlin, so no one else could get it.
Civilians took a beating. Civilians took a beating.
Millions of deaths. They took one hell of a beating. And if you would have seen Berlin prior to the war beginning, it looked like a beautiful city.
Oh yeah.
It was going strong. A lot of people. Commerce was good. The stores were busy. They had a lot of recreational things to do. Then Hitler put his 2 cents in and completely destroyed it. You know, today, of all the bombs that the Americans and the UK did with the Spitfires, there's still over 3,000 bombs
In the ground.
yes, that haven't been detonated, are still in the ground.
Yeah.
And to this date, I mean, people are still losing their legs and getting killed by these damn bombs.
Yeah.
They have many programs that have been trying to find them, but there's like millions and millions of bombs. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, they're still looking for them.
Well, you want me to start reading?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wedding jitters in a new life. The only one glaring difference would be Delphine, and she made it all worthwhile. It would make everything else acceptable as well as tolerable. Without her, it would be nothing but the same old way. There would be none of the joy and anticipation we felt now, nor would be any love we felt for one another that would sustain and nourish. Delphine would definitely be starting a new life, with everything as different as mine would be similar. She'd be leaving familiar surroundings and friends. Most of all, we'd be leaving her family and the love and affection it afforded. She'd be leaving it all behind to start a new life with a person she did not know for just a year. Just a year she knew you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She had the determination and courage to persevere throughout this transformation and still give encouragement and enlightenment to the person she was giving up her past life. I took Delphine's hand, looked up and smiled and said, yes, it's worth it. We will make a new life for ourselves wherever we are, as long as we nurture the bond that have formed between us. We will survive and build our relationship. We will have a life together. Delphine turned to me and said quietly that Rosalie was in intensive care.
Yeah.
Rosalie was sick then.
Yeah, sick. Rose is sick all the time. Yeah.
Rosalie was suffered intensive care. She had suffered a heart attack, and that was where Delphine was spending her lunch periods visiting Rosalie at the hospital. I was dumbfounded at the news, something I would never anticipate or expect to happen. Delphine was visibly upset, and I could readily understand her feelings. as Rosalie was her best friend and her closest friend. They confided in one another, being the same age and much in common. Still was something one would never foresee. Delphine said that she had gotten someone to take Rosalie's place at the wedding, something I had not even considered, as I was still preoccupied with the news about Rosalie. You have any water? She also stated that the person taking Rosalie's place was had a suitable gown for the wedding, which was fortunate and a bit of luck. I commended Delphine on her resourcefulness and I commended Delphine on her resourcefulness and commented that she would have told me about Rosalie when we talked on the phone.
14 minutes.
She only smiled and said she did not want to give me more concern about myself. So when you're talking to Delphine on the phone, she didn't tell you about Rosalie.
No, no.
All right. Delphine was pleased at my reaction and quickly changed direction in our immediate conversation. I knew that she did not want to dwell on it, for it made her feel ill at ease. I then suggested that we both go to see Rosalie tomorrow night at the hospital, and she thought it was a splendid idea. She felt better after my suggestion. She moved close to me and put her head on my shoulder. Poor Rosalie, she sighed wistfully. Everything happens to her. I put my arm about her and tried to comfort her as best as I knew how, and I felt awkward at the attempt that she must have seen and sensed my dilemma, for she began talking about the apartment and the furniture in it. I was delighted with the change in direction of our conversation and went along with her digression and departure from the painful subject. As we discussed again the various aspects of the apartment, an idea was forming in my mind as to how we should see one another driving during my afternoon shift. I certainly would break up the shift somewhat and afford Delphine a reprieve from her many trips to the hospital to see Rosalie. In essence, the idea was to have Delphine come to the Falls by bus on Sunday, visit my mother, spend the afternoon with her while I worked. I would then drive her home when I got off, and it would give us more time together. Delphine was delighted with the idea and stated she would enjoy visiting with my mother even when I was working. They would be busy themselves doing small items about the apartment, and it would give me her chance to get better acquainted with my mother and her surroundings. She was excited about the prospect, and I was heartened and that I cheered her up for somewhat and taken her mind off of Rosalie's plight for a short period. I kissed her on the cheek and held her closely, still wanting to comfort her and let her know I understood how she felt about Rosalie, and that I was sympathetic regarding her concern and apprehension. We visited Rosalie the next day at the hospital, and Delphine got out of work. She had improved slightly, but was still in intensive care and expected to be here for the next several days. She spoke softly, at times incoherently, which made it difficult to make out what she was saying. Her parents were there, and we talked with them for a while. We all stood around Rosalie's bed. Minutes, please. We were limited to how long we could visit, and I was thankful for that ruling. As I felt extremely uncomfortable in the hospital environment. I believe Delphine was also thankful we left. We drove Rosalie's parents to their home as neither one of them drove. Rosalie's parents didn't have a car enough?
No.
Where were they from? Were they immigrants?
They were in Buffalo.
Were they born in Buffalo?
No, they were immigrants. They were immigrants.
From where?
From Jerusalem or someplace up there.
Okay. They invited us in for coffee, but we declined the offer, stating that we had to be somewhere else shortly. It was not exactly true. The little white lie. But neither one of us wanted to spend more time with them than necessary. We both felt awkward infringing on their privacy and goodwill. It was still early when I left Rosalie's parents, and we were once more confronted with the problem of where to go. We decided to get something to eat and chose the nearest Your Host. What's a Your Host?
Your Host was a franchise restaurant.
Like what do they serve?
They served regular meals.
As a choice of the least resistance. It was becoming more and more difficult to engage in the passage of time, and I was grateful that it would be finally come to an end. So you mean you're so sick and tired of moving all around,
Yeah.
back and forth in Buffalo, thinking of things to do,
Yeah.
and once you get married, that would end.
Yeah.
Okay. Delphine felt the same way, reluctance and delighted at the prospect of spending the entire day at my house. It would be a welcome change, and she would be looking forward to it with anticipation. The antics of several college couples in the next booth began to disturb us, so we left rather quickly. What do you mean, the antics of college couples at Your Host?
What?
You said the antics of several college couples at Your Host started to bother you. So what were they doing?
College kids?
Yeah, here's your words.
They were acting up.
Okay. Wishing to get away from them and the ill-mannered behavior. So they had ill-mannered behavior.
Yeah.
We walked up Main Street, peering into the store windows and looking for items of furniture that might appeal to us. After a while, we went back to the car, wondering where we would go next. So now you're like a gypsy. You're finding different places to go to kill time, right?
Yeah.
Were you very sick and tired of that?
Oh yeah, it was a routine after a while.
We drove around a while with no set destination in mind, both of us rather quiet, feeling a sense of comfort in our silence and knowing that the other would eventually say something which would get us into a deep conversation again. Delphine related she had bought some curtains for the kitchen. Oh, that's nice. Delphine noted she bought some curtains for the kitchen windows and would bring them with her on Sunday. Mother and she would fuss with them, giving them both joy and delight as they labored over the handiwork. Delphine talked excitedly about the visit Sunday, and I was gratified that it gave her such joy and pleasure. It certainly was better than sitting at home by oneself, as her parents usually went visiting on Sunday afternoon. Her sister would not be much company, as she had her own friends, her age group, and would also be gone on Sunday afternoons.
That was particular there.
So Delphine's parents always went someplace on Sunday.
Yeah.
We eventually arrived at Delphine's house a little bit after 11 p.m., and I turned off the car's engine and the headlights. It was not terribly cold outside, and there was no snow anywhere. That's good. I remarked to Delphine that I hoped the weather would hold out for another 2 weeks. Did it hold out for another 2 weeks?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Or at least until after the wedding. She agreed with me and further stated that a good snowstorm just about the time of the wedding would certainly throw everything into turmoil and upset our plans. So what was wedding day like, the weather?
The what?
What was the weather on wedding day?
Wednesday was cold. It started to snow.
It wasn't that bad though.
No.
I drew her to me, kissed her, holding her tightly. I could feel, no. After a while, we withdrew and sat back in the seat, her head tilted sideways, looking at me directly. You know, in 2 short weeks, we will be married and will never be seated as we are now ever again. She whispered almost as if we had reached that point now. So she's tired of driving all over.
Yeah.
She went on. We'll no longer have to find a whereabouts where to go to pass time. We should have a bigger and more serious problems facing us on how to spend our time together. Looking back on this, it will all seem so trite and inconsequential as it never happened. I wonder what we will be doing a year from now. We will look back on these times and say they were good times or merely lock them in a memory, never to bring them up again. I took her in my arms again and held her tightly, my lips pressed against her cheeks and almost touching the earring that she had forgotten to remove. She was trembling slightly and I could hear her. She was silent now, deep into her thoughts, and I did not want to disturb her. Well, that's a nice ending to chapter 22.
Yeah.
So when you were married, did you forget all about the different times you had to figure out where to go while you're courting Delphine?
Did we think about that?
That after you got married, you stay put now.
Yeah.
You didn't have to run all over the place, but was that a great relief that you didn't have to always drive to Buffalo and figure out a place to go?
Yeah.
It was a great relief, wasn't it?
Well, we talked about it once in a while, but we knew we were really better.
So that's the end of chapter 22. Tomorrow we'll be on page 697. How many pages in this book, Mr.?
849.
How many?
849.
Okay, we're pretty close. And it'll be chapter 23 tomorrow. It'll be called Wedding and the Poconos. Minutes, please. Wedding and the Poconos. Wow. Chapter 23, Wedding and the Poconos.
2.5 minutes.
All right. So what exactly is the Poconos?
Poconos is a big resort in Pennsylvania.
And was that like a honeymoon spot?
That's where we for our honeymoon. Then we took the kids back with everybody to go over.
That's nice.
We went back there a couple times.
It's ironic, at that time, where you lived was Niagara Falls, and that was the honeymoon capital of the world.
Yeah.
But you see the falls so much, you don't want to have a honeymoon where you live.
Yeah, I know.
So you end up going to the Poconos.
Yeah.
Did you have any other honeymoon locations on your short list?
Besides the Poconos?
Yeah.
Well, we had California, but I said, I'm not going to California. They're crazy over there. They put blankets out on the street and everything else.
Yeah. What else did you have? What else did you consider? What other locations?
For the honeymoon?
Yeah.
Well, I considered going to Pittsburgh, visit my brother, and then shop around there for a day or two.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of big department stores there.
Yeah. And that's where your brother worked, right?
Yeah, Pittsburgh Plate Glass, yeah.
I see. How many years did your brother work there for?
Well, he worked there for 10 years, and he got in trouble. They sent him over to Europe, and he got into trouble, and they fired him.
You mean he got in trouble? He wasn't selling enough? Is that it?
What?
Wasn't selling enough glass? Is that how he got in trouble?
What?
You said he got in trouble. Was because his sales were low? He didn't have good sales?
No, he got trouble with women or what? I don't know what the hell. But he's drinking. He started drinking or what the hell. They fired him. They fired him. He was a producer. What they wanted him when he was there.
I see. Minutes?
30 seconds.
I see. And so then he moved, right?
Who?
Steve, he moved.
Yeah, he moved. Well, he didn't move. He stayed in Pittsburgh. He stayed.
Okay.
When he came back, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's quite interesting.
About 10 seconds.
But then he worked for headhunters. He started a business of headhunting.
Oh, I see.
Get people that had different
Find
talents.
people jobs.
Yeah.
Okay.